Sonic boom. Welcome to the open source. We are joined today by player 1, Jim Shaw, players 2 and 3, Tom and myself. Welcome, Jim.
Welcome. Yeah, it's good to see you both. Nice to have a reunion at Acquia for a little bit of a change.
And we're going to be talking about something a bit sort of left field today, about the gaming and life, I think, is our topic for today. To kick us off, as normal,
we've got a great news article today. So as a kid, I certainly love playing video games. I think that's something that we three share in common, and we're going to get into that a little bit. But one of the things that my mum always used to tell me is, you're addicted. You're addicted to video games. What are you doing? Get off. You've had too much time. And so we found this article, and I'm just going to share my screen quickly. And I know that I can really relate to this because I actually see this not only with games, but with other kind of hobbies and passions that I have in my life. The summary of the article is basically the kids aren't necessarily addicted to games. They're just using games as a way of fulfilling some other elements of their life. If we fast forward to the end of the article, I'll just hover here for, oh no, I'll keep moving. The summary of the ad is basically that actually one of the things that kids really enjoy about games is the immediate reward of accomplishing something, the immediate reward of being able to learn something very quickly and apply it. And now more than ever, also the social angle. Lots of our, kids and anybody who still games today, a big part of it is online and multiplayer. And it's important that we're socially responsible and we understand that our kids can be exposed in those environments too and treat it carefully, but it can also develop kids. There's another conversation maybe for another day about how we should be outdoors more as well, but I'll park that there.
Pokemon Go.
How do you think about that, Jim? Obviously, you gamed when you were a kid. Did you ever feel like it limited your time outdoors? Did it hold you back anywhere? Do you relate to being that sense of accomplishment by gaming as well?
So when I did gaming in my teens, I was copying the code out of the computer and video game magazine, copying it onto my VIC-20 that my dad bought me in Rumbelows. So for me, there was always that. There was two aspects to it. There was the understanding how it was done and breaking it down, the engineering behind it, as well as the playing it and the problem solving inside of it. My personal feeling on this is just like anything, too much of it is bad. But I don't know. I feel like it served me well. It kind of it's part of the thing that guided me to the career path I've had in technology and software.
Was VIC-20 your first computer?
It was the first computer I owned. It was not the first computer I coded. The first computer I coded on was a TRS-80 in the computer room at my school when I was 9 years old. It was a computer club, and a couple of the sixth formers just kind of spun up a little, hey, here's how you code. And then my second computing experience was on Apple II, because my school got Apple IIs in the lab. I think Lemonade Stand was kind of one of the first days I played on.
Do you know what was really interesting there is that you talked about the fact that a couple of sixth formers set up a club. I feel like to help people learn how to code. But I sometimes feel like our schools, globally, not just here in the UK, miss out on those.
Yeah,
that kind of club thing.
Yeah, this might be a soapbox moment. I feel like schools today focus on how to use the technology rather than how to make the technology. My girls at school here in the US, they have a course in middle school called Tech Apps, and it's basically how to use a word processor. Like when I was younger than that, I was learning to code. It's almost like the fact that technology has become more capable is stopping us learning about how you make the technology in the first place. So that's a topic I'm passionate about.
I feel like that's impacted my appreciation of games and gaming. I remember 1984. I sound like a dinosaur now. So the ZX Spectrum had been out for a few years, and I got it for Christmas. And do you remember going into a computer game shop and looking at the back of the cassette to check out the graphics? And I just remember this nostalgia of doing that and just thinking, I just want to see how good the graphics are before I put the tape in the player and load it up and wait 20 minutes to load it up. But I was programming in, or certainly giving it a try, basic, obviously back then, when the graphics started to improve and you got onto the consoles like the Amiga and so on, games like Shadow of the Beast, where you looked at them and thought, wow, this is incredible. I just had a much bigger appreciation to the level of coding and going on in the background and the creative element. Whereas now I think kids, and this isn't downplaying, kids do it, but they just have this one view of it. It's here, I can use it.
I find it fascinating that things like Minecraft, the kind of their brand was, it was 8-bit.
Right? Yeah. Retro is cool.
Yeah. Fascinating thing about Minecraft is, again, experience from my kids, it was like Lego when I was young. You had this big box of Lego and you just made stuff. Well, now you give them Minecraft and they make stuff. But, I've got one for you guys. Am I allowed to turn the tables and ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
What was the first game you played in a video game arcade? Put your 5p piece in. It's probably a 50p piece for James. 5p.
I remember it. It's a bit fuzzy. There's two. It would have definitely been Space Invaders, but the one that plays. Oh yeah, look at that. Jim's holding an actual alien from Space Invaders. Not literally an alien, obviously, but a model. But the one that sticks in my mind, the one I spent the most money on, is definitely Double Dragon.
Double Dragon, right? So that was really early stages, kind of one-on-one combat game, right?
Yeah. But what about you, Tom?
I think the first game that I probably played in an arcade was classic Pac-Man, and I did used to love that.
Hey, look! I am just predicting everything today. Look,
what's going on here?
So the game that I spent most money on in the arcade, and this probably shows my age as being a little bit younger, in fact, was Sega Rally. So I'm a big motorsport fan and I love anything to do with cars. And so when you could go and sit in a seat that kind of made noise, and even the later models even moved and vibrated a little bit, right? And drive a car, that was me. I probably wasted tens of pounds on that over the time.
What about on the PC? Did you do any PC gaming?
F1 Grand Prix was the thing I used to play most.
Yes. I
was one of the few people in my student house that had a PC. So it got lent around and used a lot. But F1 was the one where we kept a league table.
Nice.
I remember reading a review in the magazine you mentioned earlier, Computer and Video Games magazine, of a game called Secret of Monkey Island. I bought it and I read the reviews. It got really good reviews. And then I felt physically sick because I didn't have a RAM pack for my Amiga to actually run it. I just remember just feeling so like I wanted to go and vomit because I just needed to play this game. And now you leap forward to today, and I just saw that the PlayStation 5 has two versions. It has one that has a physical drive and one without. And I just thought, wow, how far have things come now?
I've got another example of how far things have come, actually. So one of the games that I was hooked on, I even got to the point where I was building PCs that were able to run this, was Microsoft Flight Simulator. I actually went to university to be a pilot. So I had my private pilot's license at one point and all of that. All of that stemmed, honestly, from Microsoft Flight Simulator. For those avid gamers out there, there is finally, after I think almost a decade's wait, a new version of Microsoft Flight Simulator that's just been released. It builds the world that you're flying in around you as you fly using AI and downloading it over the internet, and yet can produce stunning real life graphics like this. It's so photorealistic. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. And did you read the other story about this one? Is that there was a typo in the specification of a height of a particular building, and it ended up being 60 miles high or something like that. You had to fly around.
It's been called the Japanese Death Tower.
That's it. I think it's interesting how gaming has evolved over time. So, most people used to do it in the bedroom, typing in the code from the magazine, right? Then they used to buy kind of packaged games and run those on their own hardware. Then people used to go to an establishment where they had the hardware and play. They ended up buying very specialized kind of console hardware. Then that all became connected. Like the social aspect of that made it incredibly kind of compelling. And the community side of that, and all the good and the bad things that come along with that. Then now you take it and say, kind of at one stage, gaming kind of forked. And it's interesting that gaming on your mobile started in those things you used to do right back at the beginning, because it was only simple games. And there's almost like a whole class of game, which is an infinite game. They're like Candy Crush, and they're kind of brain anesthetizing things that people do in those stolen 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes where they used to kind of look at people or chat with people. So what's your favorite type of game? Like, what's the game that gets you coming back over and over again?
These days, I kind of like the obscure stuff, the stuff that's a bit arty and takes you on a journey. There's a game on the PlayStation and several other formats called Inside. I prefer now stuff which is not so open world, whereas I think open world is so popular. But I prefer the linear stuff that has a story these days. What about you, Tom?
So my kind of go-to is any racing game. And talking about mobile apps as well, there's a few things that have come up recently that started off life as a mobile app and then have progressed to different platforms as well. I'm a big Formula One fan, so one of them more recently was Motorsport Manager, which was kind of a strategy game, actually. But I also wanted to give like an honourable mention to some of the games that we haven't yet talked about today that definitely were part of my life growing up. Actually, Jim, you said Time Crisis. I've got brilliant memories of playing Time Crisis 2 on my mate Luke Spencer. If he sees this, he was the first of us to get a Sony PlayStation.
Well, you had to buy the gun, right?
You had to buy the gun as well. That was it, you see. James Bond GoldenEye on the N64. Absolutely loved that game.
So huge Pierce Brosnan fan then.
I thought his role in Mamma Mia was fantastic, if that's what you're talking about. But what about you guys? What games have we not talked about that need that honourable mention today? Well,
nobody said Tomb Raider yet. I think Tomb Raider got a whole generation of folks into gaming because it was very, very different.
The Tomb Raider franchise was very smart because they played to so many different audiences. And even if you weren't into gaming, you knew what it was.
Yep.
For many reasons.
Yes. Nobody's mentioned any of the things like Mortal Kombat and you mentioned Street Fighter, James, but I think Mortal Kombat came after Street Fighter, I think, but kind of Mortal Kombat really personified that.
I mean, Mario, the sort of the Nintendo sphere, right? Yeah, Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
Do you remember the transition to 3D gaming?
I think the one that most people kind of remember in terms of 3D games was Doom. I mean, Doom was actually a relatively simple 3D game.
I have to say, if you're listening to this and you're recent to gaming, or when I say recent, the last 10, 15 years, if you take a look at Doom now, or even a game like Wolfenstein 3D, from a playability point of view, it's still fantastic, but the graphics might shock you.
Well, it was hugely controversial. There was a big commission here in the US that led to a certification scheme, like a thing, whether it's for teens or kids or adults or whatever. And I had the opportunity to watch some of the footage from some of those, and it's right back to that article you had at the beginning. Tom was like, we should not be corrupting young minds with these kind of terrible things, because Doom was that was really hard. Kind of hard-edged stuff at the time, and it was just people having fun. Like, what's the most disgusting thing we can put in the game? Gaming has been an environment where technology makes innovation possible, and naturally people go test that innovation in lots of places. So for every Grand Theft Auto that's a little bit kind of dubious, you also have innovations like now when the NBA games are playing in a bubble and they have no audience, they're using gaming algorithms from the NBA games to generate the crowd noise based on what they're doing. When the Formula One teams couldn't race, they did an esports with the real Formula One racers racing in the F1 games, right? So it's kind of, for every one you come up with that's like a little bit, is that really where we should be going? Yeah. You come up with other ones where the innovation's actually kind of doing good. So
there's that whole series as well around taking a gamer who was fascinated with racing games and putting them through to take them to become a real racing driver as well.
It's a lot less expensive and a lot less risky to life. So, if Lewis Hamilton was coming through now, would he be a karter or would he be an esports player?
Yeah, probably an esports player, right?
Would you trust someone to fly you to the moon had they only been in a simulator?
Only if it was Tom.
Correct answer, Jim. Yeah, well, I mean, and James, I would contest that by saying, would you trust somebody to fly you on your next holiday to Spain, given that they basically train on simulators? So.
I don't know.
Well, and the algorithms built to do gaming are now probably in the autopilot for those planes anyway.
Yeah, right? 100%.
I'm on the fence on that one.
So we're almost out of time on this week's episode of the Open Source. It's been fantastic, I think, to look back through our gaming history.
So listen, I want to thank you. It's nice to come on this, and I'm just going to give a little tribute to the theme here. Like, can I do this? This is going to work. It's supposed to be a good climax here, but there we go.
Oh, look at that. I need that effect on my Zoom as well.
Thanks a lot, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Nice to see you.
Thanks, Jim.
Good to see you.
Thank you.